Sebastian, we're in the middle of your Altamira vineyard, and this is not a typical day in Mendoza.
No.
What is the weather normally like in Mendoza?
The normally weather is with the blue sky, but Mendoza is a desert in high altitude, so in general we have a lot of sunlight. And the fantastic thing of the Uco Valley, and especially this part of Altamira that is close to the Andes, is that we are very close to the sun. So the sunlight bright all the time, and in general it's very dry and warm. So today is not a normal day.
And this is mainly because of El Nino that we're going through. What's El Nino been like for Mendoza for the 2016 harvest?
Remember that our season start in June and finish in May. So it's different. But this season really rainy, more rainy than usual, like 3 times more than usual, and cooler, really cooler. So the wines are different than the wines that we usually have here, because the level of alcohol is very low, 12, 12.5, 13, but no more like this, and very low pH and high acidity. But we are learning, we are discovering a new year, a different
climate.
Yes, completely different.
And how have you seen with like climate change in Mendoza? I mean, your family, you've been making wine here for 3 generations.
Yes.
And how have you seen the climate change over the years and affect winemaking?
It's difficult to say, because I don't know if it's really the climate change or a cycle. You remember that we have cycles, but it's true that in the last 3 years has been cooler than years before, but I can't tell you exactly that this is the weather or the climate change. But really the last 3 harvests has been a little bit more humid, less than the last one, and cooler. So for our style of wine, it's interesting because we are looking for a slow ripening, and we are not looking for very high levels of alcohol.
Perfect. So it's going to be really interesting tasting the 2016 harvest.
Yes, and the other thing that is interesting to see is that we are talking about places in general of La Consulta, Altamira, Gualtallary, different places. I think in the future we have to talk of weather in different places in different harvests, because in the same harvest, not all the Uco Valley is the same.
Super. So let's talk about this place, because this is a special vineyard for you.
Yes, this is a very special place. This is the Altamira. We are 1,100 meters, very close to the alluvial cone or the alluvial fan of the Tunuyán River. So all the soils that we cultivate in Mendoza are alluvial soils, and how you can see, because all the stones are round. So all the stones came from the mountain rolling. Yes, millions of years ago we had big glaciers, and these glaciers melt, and all this water come with the stones. Altamira is very close to the mountain, so the water here had a lot of energy and could leave stones like this size of stones. Every time that you go farther from the beginning of the alluvial cone, the energy of the water is less intense, so the stones are deeper and smaller. So Altamira, big stones, but the other characteristic is that all the stones are white. If you see the stones are white around. Why? This is the chalk. This is the chalk that came also from the Andes mountain. So inside of these stones is all granite, but outside is chalk. And the fantastic thing is how the roots go and hug all these stones.
So the roots, the important thing to remember about the chalk is that the roots grow around it. They absorb water from it, or what do you think the chalk brings to a wine?
Scientifically, you have no explanation. But when you travel, when you taste places where you have chalk, and when you work in places like this, I believe that these calcareums give texture to the wines. And when you see how the roots hug the stone and go through all the soil, I believe that something happened with the wines, but scientific you have nothing.
And you talk a lot about the kind of texture that
Yes.
chalk gives you, and that it replicates it in the mouth when you taste the wine sometimes. I mean, what do you think, what's the kind of taste of chalk?
For me, we have been talking a lot about minerality, but for me it's difficult to talk about minerality because it's a word that is difficult to define. For me, the effect of the chalk in our soils is texture, is grip. When you taste in the middle of the tongue, you feel like the chalk in the middle of the tongue. So it's texture. So for me, Altamira is a place where you have not very big voluminous wines, but the texture is fantastic.
And this texture,
Yes.
texture, which is
I think is the way to understand it.
Where do you get this texture in the Uco Valley? So it's not just Altamira where you can find this chalky soil, but where else? Which other regions?
For me, the most texture regions that has a very strong relationship with chalk is Altamira, Gualtallary, and San Pablo. But I'm not saying that these are the only good regions in Mendoza. Chalk give you a thing in the wines, but then you have regions like Chacayes or like La Consulta or like, I don't know, El Peral, where you don't have this quantity of chalk, but the style of wines is different.
Super. And what do you think is exciting about being a winemaker in the Uco Valley nowadays?
For me, the most exciting thing is to be in the vineyards. When you walk the vineyards and when you see this kind of soils and how the roots explore this kind of soils, and then you see how the wines are coming from, is fantastic. It's really exciting. And the other thing is that we are dividing and understanding that every region has different expressions, and also inside of the same region, the future will be divided in more sub-regions. And also inside of our vineyards, because the alluvial movement, we have a lot of difference in terms of soil. So today our work, especially in the vineyard, we make the wines in the vineyard. How? Separating per kind of soils, and then in the winery try to take care about everything that comes from the vineyard.
Great. And if a consumer's out there drinking wine today, what are the main regions and how many regions should they be looking for in the Uco Valley to taste?
The Uco Valley is, you have more than 40 regions, but for me, if it's my opinion, again, is the vision of one producer. For me, you have like 8 regions that are the best, or 9 regions. That is the west area. From the south to the north is Altamira, La Consulta, Chacayes, Los Arboles, San Pablo, Gualtallary, and El Peral, San Jose. And all this area for me is the most interesting. We are looking the influence of the ocean for the weather, but for the soils also.
Super. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.